Hello and welcome once again to Let's Talk Criterion, the channel that regularly previews forthcoming releases in the Criterion collection. And we're now nearly halfway through the year, and this week we'll be looking at the 4K UHD of the Wachkowski's crime thriller Bound. Many will know the Wachkowski brothers from their original trilogy of Matrix films produced between 1999 and 2003, starring Keanu Reeves. But Bound was their first full-length project released before the Matrix films 3 years earlier in 1996. Violet, Jennifer Tilly, longs to escape her relationship with her mafioso boyfriend Caesar, Joe Pantoliano, and she enters into a clandestine affair with alluring ex-con Corky, Gina Gershon, and the two women hatch a scheme to steal $2 million of mafia money. Bound appears to be ripe with all the elements necessary for a top-notch exploitation flick. Leather, guns, gangsters, blood. From the first scene, however, it's obvious that the writing and directing team of Andy and Larry Wachkowski are aiming for something considerably higher than rudimentary titillation, and by taking chances and twisting conventions, they've hit pay dirt with Bound. It's among the best film noir entries of that decade. From beginning to end, it's solidly entertaining. Caesar is a money launderer for the mob, sometimes in a very literal fashion. Watch how he cleans up a sack of bloody bills. His live-in girlfriend Violet, who's a closet lesbian, is itching to get free of him. "I want out," she says. "I want a new life." She sees her chance when an ex-con named Corky moves in next door. Now, methodically, Violet seduces Corky, and then after a heated sexual encounter, the two plot how to liberate Violet along with $2 million of the mob's money, and that's currently in Caesar's possession. Saying more than that about the plot of Bound would be unfair, because the plot is loaded with unexpected twists and turns, and for most fillers I'm able to predict the so-called surprises far in advance, but this film's well-orchestrated twists kept me right off balance. Until the final scenes, in fact. It's impossible to be sure of anyone or anything in the film. The biggest question which is raised by the characters and stays with us is who can be trusted. We're never sure who's on the level and who's lying. And since the Wachowskis don't feel bound, pardon the pun, by the conventions of the genre, they freely violate our expectations. Best of all, everything that transpires in the film makes perfect sense. And the film doesn't demand unreasonable leaps of logic to tie everything together. In that way, it's like Blood Simple in The Last Seduction. Perhaps the most intriguing departure from the norm is the use of a pair of lesbians as the main characters. Ultimately, it's a great choice, both from a plotting and an aesthetic standpoint. Jennifer Tilly and Gina Gershon steam up the screen with a kind of eroticism that's rarely found in the same-sex or opposite-sex couplings. And from the close-ups of Gershon's hands and Tilly's legs to the love scene, which is played by an undercurrent of humour, the directors certainly understand exactly how to photograph these two to their best advantages, using shadows and unusual camera angles to intensify the sensuality. Now, Tilly doesn't have great range as an actress, but she can do this kind of role in her sleep. And with her high-pitched, breathy voice and low-cut necklines, she's perfectly cast as Violet. Bound's femme fatale. Unlike her Oscar-nominated part in Bullets Over Broadway, this gangster's moll isn't a ditz. In fact, she's quite intelligent, and that makes her a force to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, Gina Gershon does an about-face more glamorous turn in Showgirls, essaying the tough James Dean-like Corky, a professional thief who's interested in cleaning her life up until she falls for Violet and $2 million. Gershon, who gave one of the better performances in Showgirls, is excellent here, capturing our sympathy from the very first reel. And Corky, like Violet, also is smart. The intended victim of Violet and Corky's plan, Caesar, isn't dumb either, and his refusal to act predictably fuels several scenes thick with tension. Actor Joe Pantoliano from The Fugitive plays Caesar as a normally cool man, driven over the edge when he loses control of his circumstances. But despite his growing panic, Caesar tries to think things through, and this makes him a dangerous adversary. Watch for how he uses the redial button on the phone. And from a stylistic perspective, this is a beautiful film. Colour motion picture with black and white sensibilities, as is often true of the best modern film noir. Shadows and light are used to good effect, and the directors, along with their cinematographer Bill Pope, have crafted a number of artistically superior shots. In one instance, we see a drop of crimson fall into the clear water of the toilet and then slowly diffuse. In another, we see hundreds of dollar bills hanging by pins from a makeshift clothesline. And then there's a scene where blood spatters a small pool of fresh white paint. From the opening moments ripe with sexual tension to the closing shot, Bound offers us edge-of-the-seat experience. No noir thriller since The Usual Suspects has fully captured my attention. Now, curiously, both The Usual Suspects and Bound were released by the same distributor, Gramercy Pictures. Now, this film was less adeptly made. It might go down as a guilty pleasure. But considering the amount of skill and intelligence invested in this particular production, there's nothing remotely shameful about this particular indulgence. The directors struggled to cast the roles of Violet and Corky as well, seemingly because of the lesbian content in the film. Few actresses were interested in the part. The part of Violet was expected to go to Linda Hamilton, and Jennifer Tilly read initially for the part of Corky. She loved the role and was looking forward to playing the character very differently. But when the part of Violet became available, and Gina Gershon came in to read for Corky, Tilly agreed that Gershon would make a better Corky. The sex scenes were choreographed by feminist writer and sex educator Susie Bright, and the Wachkowskis were fans of Bright and sent her a copy of the script with a letter asking her to be an extra in the film. Bright loved the script, particularly as it was about women unapologetically having and enjoying sex. Disappointed by the lack of the description in the sex scenes, she offered to be a sex consultant for the film, and they accepted. And the main sex scene set in Corky's apartment was filmed in one long shot. The directors believed that the continuous shot would be more realistic than several shots edited together. Bound was filmed over a 38-day period in Santa Monica in California, and the Wachowskis' original director of photography resigned, claiming that he could not film with the limited budget he'd been given, nor did he know anyone else who would be willing to work that cheaply. But subsequently, cinematographer Bill Pope was hired, and he knew a bunch of cheap guys who would be willing to work within the budget. Pope was heavily involved in creating the visual noir style of the film, and he and the Wachowskis drew inspiration from their love of comic books and were particularly influenced by Frank Miller and his comic neo-noir Sin City. Bound won the Grand Jury Award, honourable mention at the 1996 LA Outfest, and in the same year it won an honourable mention at the Stockholm International Film Festival. At its heart, Bound is about the endurance of women, and in this case, two lesbians who are in love in a society that rejects this. All of the trials and tribulations that fall upon Corky and Violet are at the hands of men, and no matter how bad things seem to get for the two women, they always come out victorious. Bound, though it was made in 1996, still feels refreshing today, and many would suspect that the women would ultimately face their downfall at the hands of such violent men, but they end up on top, having beaten all of the men who try so desperately to tear them down. The ending is equally as satisfying. It's a hopeful and beautiful scene, and the happy ending cements the movie as a landmark for LGBT cinema. Bound, as usual, for 4K contains two discs. The first disc is the 4K UHD of the film, and the second is the Blu-ray with the film and the following special features. New 4K digital restoration of the unrated international version, supervised and approved by cinematographer Bill Pope, with 5.1 surround master audio soundtrack. One 4K UHD disc of the film, presented in Dolby Vision HDR, and one Blu-ray with the film and the audio commentary, featuring directors Lana and Lily Wachkowski, actors Gina Gershon, Joe Pantoliano and Jennifer Tilly, editor Zach Stenberg and technical consultant Susie Bright, new video essay by film critic Christina Newland, 6 interview programmes featuring Gershon, Pantoliano, Pope, Sternberg, Tilly, actor Christopher Maloney, composer Don Davis, title designer Patti Podesta, and scholars Jennifer Moorman and B. Ruby Rich. Trailers and a written essay by the scholar Mackenzie Wark. And the cover art is by Drusilla Adeline and Sister Hyde Design. With cracking dialogue, luscious neo-noir cinematography and live wire performances by Gershon, Tilly and Joe Pantoliano, Bound is a genre and reimagining joyride that keeps both the tension and erotic heat rising through each crazily careening twist. Of course, nowadays Lana and Lily Wachkowski tend to work on solo projects, with Lily's most recent project being 2 episodes of the Showtime comedy Work in Progress, and Lana's direction of the last Matrix installment, Matrix Resurrections. Bound has a running time of 108 minutes, and it comes to the collection in 185 by 1 aspect ratio, that's widescreen, and releases on Tuesday the 18th of June with a spine number of 1220. And of course, it's no surprise that Bound releases in the Criterion collection this particular month, as it's International Pride Month in June, with their annual UK March due to take place on the 29th of June, as well as other Pride events staged across the entire month the world over. So until next time, from me, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.